Good morning, Facebook. I am going live. It is 11:11 a.m. on a beautiful Sunday here in Kansas, right there in the Midwest. And I wanted to do a second part of the second Sunday, which was last week. And usually I do a brief question and answer at the end of that live, but I really wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of process the week and develop your questions and really give you a solid hour and a half of really important questions that are going on in your life right now in this community group. We do a very intensive question and answer in our subscription group every week, and I don't really get to do this in this group. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity with considering the time and space that we are in right now in the universe, how everything is shifting and turning and twisting and separating and falling away and falling apart, that it might be a good opportunity to jump on live and get some of these questions answered. So what I did last week is I had you guys write your questions in the comments. So I have those sectioned off here. What I will be doing is if I get through these, I think there's about 7 or 8 questions in time, I will take some new questions. And I really wanted the topic of today's question and answer to be about this time and space. Not so much about, what is my purpose in life? Because that's really something you need to kind of jump in the community and like work with us on. That's not something I can give you right now. I could, but it's not really where we are as a collective right now. Where we are as a collective is understanding all of these twists and turns and these changes. We've had such a galactic shift over this last year. 2018 was almost like turning you all the way over and shaking you out. And so that when you turn back over, you'll be this new version of yourself. And that's really what I want to talk about today, because Second Sunday was a little bit intense last week as we're really gearing up for taking full ownership of the shift and really standing in our ability to demonstrate who it is we say we are in our gut, in our heart, instead of so much the logic of our head, turning off our dreams and our hopes and our ambitions due to circumstances. And the more and more we understand quantum biology and quantum physics, we really do understand that everything is always just a possibility in motion. It is a possibility waiting for the correct focus, the correct frequency to virtualize and manifest the desired reality that we're all seeking. And we've read this for years. We understand this as a collective in the New Age philosophy, but only still about 25% of light workers are living their purpose. And to me, purpose, mission, identity, perspective, personality, it's once we kind of really take ownership of who we are as an individual soul, we realize that there's no separation between what we do for a living and who we are in our household and who we are as parents and who we are as friends. And that to me is what I've always taught, get paid to be yourself. And really what I mean by that is not so much get paid to be yourself, but be able to be the same version of you in your work and have those creative hobbies and those gifts and those joys to be part of your work instead of, work is over here and it's like this slavery complex. And then after hours, do we have enough energy to, paint that picture or write that book or tell that story or sing that song? And it's really about merging our lives into one perspective so that we are living and breathing our truth. And that is the way that we're going to have a global effect on this planet. It doesn't mean that you all need to be sitting here doing what I'm doing to have a global effect. It means that when you are living your highest expression of joy, your frequency amplifies to a perspective that can reach the entire masses. When you are suffering, that is also dumping into the collective and adding to the collective format of suffering, which means everything is duality and a paradox existing in one moment based on who and what you're thinking about yourself. So with the ideas of this shift really taking place and us going, okay, we really are in 5D. This is real. Like I can manifest quick. I can follow my dreams. I can follow my hopes. I can become my highest self. Where does that leave the past version of us? It leaves it in shambles. It leaves it in confusion. It leaves it in chaos. It leaves it in turbulence. But that is necessary combustion when a star is born. So these are all things that mechanically are perfect in alignment when you understand quantum physics. But when you don't really take ownership of who you are as a creator, it can feel very scary and it can feel very overwhelming and you can feel like you're getting it wrong. And that's really why I wanted to do this question and answer today, because I want to bring clarity and understanding to what it is that you're growing through right now, because that's really what's happening is you're growing through yourself. And the way that you do that is you're going all the way inside of yourself and you're unlocking that seed of potential instead of constantly searching for the potential outside of you that will give you the okay, the agreement, or the permission to be yourself. So we've been talking a lot about DNA activations over the last several months. We had our first stop of our Quantum Revolution tour that was in Miami, and my heart is overwhelming in joy and love at what I was able to witness and comprehend and be a part of during that event. It was a million times more than I could have ever expected that would transcend during that time. And you know, since 2014, and I decided to show up for my mission on this planet, I was given the words awaken, integrate, transcend. And that's all I knew about my mission, is that was my job. I was here to help people awaken, integrate their lives, and transcend into the butterfly and become. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I didn't know who I was going to do that with, but I just knew that if I showed up with that intention every single day, that it would materialize. And so it has. So as we have shifted from the awaken phase into the activation phase, which is really where we are in 5D, we went from awaken to activate. Well, what does that mean? Well, once you're awake, you know, you're starting to like figure things out, but activate is like turning yourself back on. And that's really what these tours are designed to do, is turn you all the way back on from the inside, which means the only way to find the dial to get your volume the highest with your soul's frequency is in that diamond heart chakra. And there's a lot of dirt and manure and pain and suffering that is basically become a cell, a jail cell around that. And it's really about pulling all of that off, and so that you can feel safe and deserving and worthy and free to be yourself. And so during the tour, that is exactly what we did from a very scientific perspective. It was not any new age spiritual hoopla. It was extreme technology that is geared to hold your brainwave in a frequency where you can basically get time and space away from your problems in order to integrate the real you. So many of you that were on that tour had those phenomenal experiences, those releases, those acceptance points, those activation moments, that joy, that trigger that some of you were feeling during the process of the ego not wanting to allow you to be in that frequency of gamma. We all went through this, and we had basically this very opening and activating experience together. And I want to utilize this question and answer to kind of deal in some of the questions of the after effects of what happens once you're activated. Although you're constantly activated, it's not like you have to be at the tour to activate, but it's almost like we're going to hack the system. We're going to hack the collective slave program for 3 days. We're going to isolate ourselves in the frequency of gamma, theta, delta, and alpha for some learning, and some beta in the action of play versus high beta of fight or flight. And we utilized all of these amazing frequency by creating this more of like hallucination state of us all to be surrounded in, why we played, why we rejoined with each other, why we reconnected, why we breathed, why we opened our hearts. And in that bubble, almost like that womb effect that we understand with quantum reality, is that's where we build our new reality. So that's pretty much what the tours are designed to do. And we had a blast. So I want to cover some of the after effects of what happens now when you take this experience back into, you know, your home life, where you have that job and you have that relationship and you have, you know, that hope and dream that you still aren't sure how to manifest. And so thank you so much for joining me today, and I will jump in and stop yabbing my brains out. So, okay, so first question that I have on the screen here is from Heather Wilcox, and she says, during the second breathwork ceremony, council gave me a diamond in my pineal. Diamond in pineal. Turns out that it's a thing and literal. One other person also has this, and you. Any tips, ideas, reflections, insights? Have been reading how to protect from fluoride in water because it calcifies. Okay, so this is an awesome question, because this is like directly related to this second day of the tour, I believe. We had a series of 3 breathwork activations during that tour. And what she's basically saying is that her guidance council gifted her in that process, or after that process, what was felt as a diamond in her pineal. And if we understand what the pineal gland is, it is the communication line and the connector between the spirit world and the physical world. And so it really is like, it's like this little tiny acorn that will completely be that sensor. It's like that sensor that makes your car work. It's like it's the number one thing that connects those two worlds apart. And then your frontal cortex is how you can imagine that place. So that third eye perspective. And what she was saying is she was gifted this. Turns out it's a real thing, and it's literal. Of course it is, because we are 80% non-physical and 20% physical. We are more non-physical than we are real. And she said one other person has this, and you, any tips, ideas, reflections, insights. So to me, it just sounds like, you know, Miami was downloaded to me as a family reunion. So what it feels like is that you are receiving and remembering your spirit council, and they were going through a ceremony, which I'm going to talk a lot about in this Q&A, is a ceremony of gift of a diamond. And what is a diamond? A diamond is transparency. So they were giving you the gift of transparency in your vision. That was the symbolic state of that. Now, how do we protect ourselves, right? Any tips, ideas, reflections, insights have you been reading to protect? Okay, so I don't believe in protection. If you understand quantum mechanics, you understand that everything is inclusive. So if I have to be in a state of protection, that I still feel like I have some victim program running. But I do believe in energetic boundaries. Boundaries are like, you know, healthy fences, right? They're healthy gates that allow us to keep our frequency in alignment with our truth and allow to co-create with others. So how do we co-create our frequency with poison water, right? That's the question that she's basically asking. So, you know, when I talk about duality on the planet, I talk about how we are awakening and we're activating and we're upgrading and we're basically becoming these light bodies. But you have to understand that duality plays a very significant role in the leveling up ascension process, because as the light increases on the planet, so does the absence of light, which is what some of you call the dark or evil. But I call it the absence of light. If in a room, there is no off switch, right? There is no off switch that turns off the light. There's just an on switch. And when you turn off it, it takes the light away. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily gone. It just means that it is not projecting. So we've got the absence of light on the planet, and then we have light on the planet. And when we are in the absence of light, we are not remembering our divinity. We are not remembering that we are source energy. We are not remembering that we are immortal in mortal bodies. And when we don't remember those things, we still want to feel alive and we still want to feel powerful. So we use power, force, over flow. And if you understand martial arts, force and flow is the essence of yin and yang. So it's like force is based in control. And flow also has a control because of the quickness and speed of it, but it isn't about force. It is about allowing. So we have got force and we've got allowing. So we've got that two programs running on this planet. So as the light increases, the absence of light increases, because everything in duality is always leveling up to itself. Now, what will happen eventually is we will turn towards the absence of light and we will love it unconditionally until the density part of us is so welcomed, loved, and adored and allowed that it no longer has a polar effect on us and our planet. And duality becomes unity. That's the phase that we're going. So you can see that we can't turn to the dark and hide. We cannot push. We cannot protect. We have to go, this is a reflection of the lack of love on the planet. Any group or people or places or unity factor that would create poisonous water to control the pineal parts of the brain has an agenda. Well, we have an agenda, don't we? And if this was a basketball game and there was two teams playing on the field, each team would have an agenda. Does it make one right and one wrong? Now we are saying, oh yeah, but this is poisoning our bodies. But it's just a challenge for us. It is a challenge for us to out-create density. It is our job as light workers to out-create the challenges on this planet, which means that as the masses are drinking poisonous water, they are becoming sedentary, because that's what fluoride does. It creates a calcification of the pineal gland, and it creates a very sedentary outlook. We start to lose motivation. We start to lose the desire, which is the first step of manifestation, and therefore we are highly controllable, all right? Light, absence of light. This is the game we're playing of duality. So what? So how can we outsmart, outlove, outcreate this situation? Well, first and foremost, we can get really informed about our water, and we can make choices to drink water that isn't processed or poisoned. And we can also, as we become more educated in that, we can learn how to unpoison water with our own frequencies. See, this is how powerful this human energetic field is. If you understand Nikola Tesla's inventions, it was all based in the diamond heart chakra. It was not based on some outer space technology that he was gifted, 100 some odd years ago. It was channeling the impact and power of the infinite source within the diamond heart chakra. So I have cleared tap water using my own intention and my own frequency, okay? So when you get to a point where you are really solid in who you are, and you're not wishy-washy with your vibration, and you're not falling in and out of pain constantly, and you're not falling into the slumber effects of third dimension, you will be able to hold your state of being, and your body will become like a crystal. So all you actually have to do is hold something poisonous, and guess what it turns into? The same way I clear a house, the same way I clear food, the same way I clear anything, it is an intention. And it is that frontal cortex imagination that brings the field of light into the water, because water is the most programmable thing on the planet. It is literally waiting for the program. And if it's got initial program of fluoride, which is basically sedentary behavior, right, and it strips minerals and it calcinize, then I can override that. But if you're not in that state of being, which you all will be at some point very soon, if you're not in that state of being to really be able to trust yourself, change the frequency of the water that you're holding, you can use crystals, you can use essential oils to clear the water and the charge, you can use frequency waves that we now have available to us from Click Now. We have the scalar energy that we're using constantly in our tours, which is the quantumsoundtherapy.com, which is our partners now in this new energy, which I will talk about the 5G and the 5D coming up soon. And really what it is about is getting the cleanest spring or cleanest water that you can get your hands on. And that is a self-loving raising of your own vibration awareness game that you can play until you become the diamond frequency. And then when you become the diamond frequency, you will be able to clear anything that is out of alignment in your universe, because you trust that you are and that you can. And until you get into that belief system, until you start operating in that space, there are thousands of things that we can use to create boundaries, not protection. See how when I say protection, now I'm scared. We don't want to be afraid. We're light workers. We came to bring the light in the darkest places. That's our job. So how can I bring my light to poisonous water? Well, if I can't physically become the diamond that changes the water, because I don't believe that yet, then there's lots of permission slips and there's lots of ways around me that I can use to clear that water if I have to drink it, okay? Because the human heart field trumps any frequency in the universe. And when we are in that space, nothing that is out of alignment will be a vibrational match to us, which means the only way that fluoride water will actually create some sort of outcome in my reality is if I have a matching frequency of already feeling overwhelmed, tired, neglected, and trapped. See, we have to hold the frequency of the emotion in order to be a vibrational match to anything poisonous. So if I get a hold of a frequency of a germ, like my kid gets sick or something, my body will not get sick unless I'm a vibrational match to that ailment. Okay, so if my son gets a cold, we know that colds mean loss, which means feels like we have lost something internally. If I am going through a loss in that moment or feeling overwhelmed or feel at a loss, then I'm a vibrational match to that germ, and therefore I am going to get sick. Okay, so you have to understand that every single thing in the universe is vibration and frequency, and nothing can hurt you if you're not in the same vibration of already the pain, which means feeling the pain, like feeling broke and then breaking something. It is always, always, always the reflective part of the universe. But when we think about when they first started using fluoride in the Nazi Germany's big fun thing that we plan to clear one of these days, is they were doing it to basically control people enough where they wouldn't try to rebel, okay? And because they had a huge master plan going on there, right? They didn't want people to rise up and remember in their pineal glands who and what they were, because, you know, pressure creates the diamond, and they were all being very pressurized, and then they were being sedated. So isn't that kind of what's happening right now on the planet, is the more we rise, the more they try to sedate the parts of our body that have access to the universe, the heart chakra, right? The pineal gland, the frontal cortex, the nervous system, the gut, the brain and the gut. All of these essences of us, our sexual organs, are all constantly in communication with the universe, unless we're slowly being poisoned or taught away from how to heal ourselves. And if we realize that our job we're just playing a basketball game. So just virtual reality, we've got opposing sides. So instead of being afraid and retreating and then judging the opposing side and how could they do this to us and how could they kill us, say, okay, what do I have to actually what do I have to trump this? What do I have to out-create this? And that's really where possibilities are, where your salvation is to live in a constant state of possibilities, living in a state of constant, infinite potential of answers, solutions, and opportunities, versus the old program of 10 steps forward, 10 steps back. You know, I want to do this, but my family won't let me. I want to create this, but I don't have the money. That is the old paradigm. And if we continue to choose those belief systems to operate in those spaces, then it will constantly feel like as we level up, they level up. If we level up, they level up. And if we do that and we continue to be afraid of what they're going to level up to, then we'll always feel like we've just got one little step ahead before they basically come out with something else, which is what we're going to be talking about in the question of 5G today. So hopefully that answered your questions, and that was not a tough question. That was an awesome question. So thank you, Heather, for asking it. Cortez says, this morning, and I think this was last week, I ran over 2 chipmunks and I was completely distraught and had to pull over, and I was completely upset. I mean, really, really upset. Is this something related to the quantum activation? It seemed to have a really up and down day. Thank you. So yes, when you become more aware and you become more loving, you will become more emotional. Energy in motion. Now, when we open the heart, this is my best advice for people who are working on heart activations right now, is that you're going to feel a lot more. You're going to feel connection to everything in the universe. And when something like running over 2 chipmunks happens, that is something that now has a visceral effect on you physically, emotionally, and chemically. It probably always has been like that because you're very much an empath. But to understand that now in this new heart, we see when the diamond heart activates, you feel the unity of the entire planet. You feel connected to the good, the bad, the ugly, the past, the present, the future, the deceased, the not born yet. You feel all of that. And it is about now learning how to be in those feelings, because it can be very isolating in the beginning when your heart opens, because you feel sorry and bad for the people that are horrible on this planet or acting in that horrible state of being, and it can be overwhelming. But our job is not to be overwhelmed by our empathy or to have insane sympathy. It is about to have understanding. And I think the reason maybe you would have manifested that was to show you how much more you are in your feelings. And as a man, the divine masculine is beginning to rise, because we're in the third state of awakening, which is I demonstrate, and that's where men shine. They really shine in the I demonstrate. So now that we're in this awakening phase, they're like, whoa, I'm going to demonstrate my feelings. I'm going to demonstrate my emotions. I'm going to demonstrate my my ability to not, hurt myself every day to provide for my family. I'm going to internalize more than I'm projecting outwardly. And women, we're demonstrating our masculine power. We're building businesses and companies and strategic information and writing books. And so we're having our demonstration in the action world, and men are having their demonstration in the emotional world. And that is so awesome for the balance that's coming next, because the fourth awakening is I love. And as for us to all return to love, we have to be in divine unity of balance between the masculine and feminine energies. And that's really what's happening, is you're balancing now. You're moving into your divine feminine. You're allowing yourself to feel the things that narrowly kill us in the past, because we resist our feelings and our emotions so intensely that we go into those suicidal spaces. And I'm not saying this particularly with you, but we go into those spaces where we would rather not be here than feel what we need to feel. And when the heart opens, it's like the cup runs over, and we have to just be with that feeling, and we have to just love that chipmunk and see that that chipmunk is not having its rest point, but its rebirth point, and understanding that every transition is a new birth, and really being with that. So really it was about you kind of having an echo effect to see where it is you are, because your life will constantly give you these circular motions of this spiral effect where you awaken and you integrate, and then the transcendence happens right after you go through your old programs again. It's like you have to go back through the old programs to see who you've become, to see who you are in your new state of being, to see where your elevated heart is, to see where your balance points are, to see what you still have to clear. And this circular ascension is a spiral. So we're always kind of going back into painful moments to see who we are in the things that we've always avoided. And that is before we resurrect to the new state of being or the new level of becoming. So awareness works in these like 7-year cycles, or these 7 path cycles, because you can do them faster than a year now. So we've got awareness, we've got discovery, we've got transition, we've got self-love, and we're moving through these spirals of time and space to actualize our awareness. And when we become aware that it is okay for us to be mis-emotional for a while, which means up and down, high and low, feeling very bipolar, then what you're doing is you're expressing, you're expressing and you're purging what you have been locking down for a really long time. So when you lock down emotions, it makes you sick, cynical, broke, tired, and alone. And when you start to feel all of those things, the only thing you really have to deal with when you begin to feel your feelings is your own judgment and your own fear about what you're feeling. That's really the only thing you have to see in the mirror at those points of purge, is we usually have this overwhelming judgment of ourselves. Oh my gosh, I just went to this DNA activation and now my life's falling apart. But if you've been listening to my teachings in the classroom, you understand that your life is not falling apart, it's falling together. And any false securities that we are holding on to from 3D, that we are projecting and reflecting to use as our personal safety mechanisms that do not support our highest expression and mission on the planet, will be removed, which means false securities, fake relationships, fake identities, pride. We are moving into a state of unified, humble beings of light. And it has to be basically like washed clear for that to happen. So sometimes things fall apart so they can fall back together, because your identity is too stuck in money or too stuck in an object or too stuck in a person. And so you can't move forward if you're locked in that identity. So your higher self will manifest a bottom dropping out, or a ground zero, or a dark night of the soul, or a rock bottom for you to awaken, and then begin to build yourself back up with your new state of being. Because in your new awareness, you've got to take that backpack of suffering off, and you've got to be able to walk lighter in the footsteps moving forward in time. So hopefully that answered your question, Cortez. And thank you for your question. Kathy. Actually, I think, honestly, I might have answered this one in the classroom last week. Let me read through it really quick. Okay, I'm going to read it anyways because I feel like it's relevant. So Kathy asks, I'm kind of like Blythe with conflicted emotions lately. I feel really high at work when I'm with my students, and then get low with the nonsense part of my job. And then at home, my kids have been triggering me so much. I think it's my lack of time, freedom, rearing up, and not wanting to do the things that I don't want to do. My inner child is tantruming at that. How do I find balance of being my higher self more of the time? Great question. Our job is to be our higher self as much as we can throughout the day, which means that I know that you're running on this hamster wheel of your life. There's parts of your job you love your kids, you love all of the things that are happening, but there's a lot of things that you are not loving. So it's these bittersweet manifestations constantly going on in your vibration. And the greatest element for you to be able to get perspective is time and space, which means that it's very important that when your life is as busy as it sounds, with everything all day long, constantly pulling on your needs and wants, it leaves you depleted. My initial teaching when I opened Transcendence 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was 50-50 rule. 50% self-service, which means I am working on me to be better me for you, which means 50% of the time, I am focused on my joy, my vibration, my understanding, my remembering, my connection. And 50% of the time is service to the world. Now, moms, we're horrible at this. Dads are too, because what happens is we give 100% at work. We give 100% to our kids. We give, the other percentages that exist in quantum physics to paying the bills, cooking the foods, driving to soccer, doing all the things that we do. And we then are getting really irritated with the outside reflection, because the inside family unit that you have, the me, myself, and I, the inner child, the ego expression, and the higher self, are literally like, when is it going to be my turn? When am I going to play? There are certain elements of your day that feel like play, but there's no actual creation going on for extended play or more play. Hopes and dreams are bypassed by your busy schedule. Now, busyness is an addiction, and I talk a lot about addiction in the Tika Academy because it can be the art of giving. I'm blocked in my receiving, so I'm going to get resentful on the fact that I'm giving. I'm blocked in my receiving, but I don't want to look at that because I don't want anybody to actually help me, because then it will make me feel small and weak and unsafe. So really the best thing that you can do, Kathy, is pull completely out of your life into your own true awareness with your breath, and look at all the moving parts of your life and really decide, which part of my life do I get to facilitate and express my higher self? Now, I would want you to write down all of the places where you cannot be your higher self, where it's like impossible, your frequency drops out of alignment, you're not there. Okay, here. Okay, then this is where I taught the Becoming the Real You workshop, where you have to start through self-love, eliminating or delegating more, which means there are going to be certain things, places, people, and time, obligations that you're going to have to relook at from your higher expression and decide empathically towards yourself what is actually hurting you the most, and what do you believe about all of these things, where there's no physical room for you to have a 50-50 life. Now, I know that you can have a 50-50 life because I live a 50-50 life. I teach 6 classes a week. I have 5 companies. I have 4 children. I have a relationship of a person that I live with. I have, you know, other obligations. And 50% of my day is spent towards me. How do we do that? Well, when you really start to understand that you create your reality, you learn how to bend time. And you learn how to maximize in time through discipline. Now, I know that's kind of a bad word to some of you guys, but when I look at my day and then I look at where is the me time, where do I get to pull back and be? Where do I get to do my meditation? Where is my joy? Where is my fun? I have to create that. And then I have to get rid of anything in my life that is not expansive, fun, creative, or actually helping me expand. And that's very tough sometimes in the beginning, because it might be people, places, things. It might be things that you're not looking at, you're resisting because you don't want to feel the pain of letting certain things go. And if you had all this time, would we have to look in the mirror? And if we looked in the mirror, what would we see? And so there's this like critical, like dis-ease that goes on with humanity, where we're constantly, especially light workers, where we're these ultra givers, and our true block is in the receiving, and we don't understand that it's in the receiving. All we know is that nobody ever supports us, and nobody ever is there for us, and people keep letting us down, so I have to keep giving, and I have to keep giving, and I have to keep giving. And your inner child will throw a tantrum. Your inner child will become jealous of your children. Your inner child will be resentful of your spouse or your job. Your ego will feel completely out of control because it's not in control of everybody's vibration. And your higher self will be bored. And it's just like, okay, we're on this hamster wheel again. Okay, we're not adventuring, we're not expressing, we're not expanding, we're just living. And therefore the physical body, the telomeres begin to shrink in the system, the brain begins to shrink, and the body starts to go inward, and the separation begins between source and body, and at least the visualization of that separation, because it never actually becomes separate. And then we feel like we're just this like ball of density living out this life. So our job is to reflect. Really look at your life and be like, okay, self-loving, what goes, what stays? Do I have to wake up an hour early? Because you guys, that's what I do, is I wake up hour and a half before anyone in my house, and I do whatever I want with that time. It is my highest joy. And the reason why is because nobody is awake, nobody's needing anything. Everyone's, in my community anyways, everyone's mind is quiet because I can hear everyone's mind. Wi-Fi is not being used at that hour of the day, so my energy field feels very vibrant. And I just look or draw or write or dance or exercise or do whatever it is that is my highest expression. And then I can be in the state of giving throughout the day. And then what I noticed is when I do that, I have all these pockets of time where I'm like, oh, I could go shopping right now, or I could finish writing my book, or I could do this, or I could call this person, or I could work on this part. And there's this time that starts to open up for you because you're actually believing that you have time, because your entire virtual reality is built in your belief systems. So when you start to feel like you have no time, you literally manufacture that and you create more of that, because the universe only has one word, and it's yes. So if you don't feel like you have time, the universe says yes to that, and it will give you something else dumped on your lap that now is taking more time. So it's like you setting an intention that I'm the most important person in my universe, and I'm going to look at this as a challenge, not a problem, and I'm going to reorient my schedule, and I'm going to delegate. My kids are old enough to do this. You know, my husband can do this, my employees can do this, I can outsource this, I can outsource that, I can outsource this, because I'm abundant. And then all of a sudden you have this 50-50 time for yourself, and your inner child is rejoicing. And when your inner child and ego are happy with its expansion, your ego begins to awaken. And when your ego begins to awaken, you really start to accelerate. But if you are sitting in problems, suffering, challenges, limitations, your ego will constantly pull the past back into your face. Constant, 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 okay? So hopefully that helped. I've been doing a lot of classes in Tika about exactly this the last probably 4 weeks. So if you haven't had a chance, I think you have been watching the classes, but just jump in and watch because I really elaborate on more on how to do this. Okay, great question. All right, Heather asks, I have never been free. So how do I readjust my expectations? How do I let all my possibilities show up? What am I now capable of? How have been so hungry, did add in structured water and so tried other than minerals. Is there eating tips, listening to the body? It's just been eat more. How does my life need to change now? For instance, my singing voice is now exquisite. Have 2 more ranges added on. Wouldn't have thought I could go pro, but now could. What else is possible? That's the best question in the universe. What else is possible? What else can I do? What else can I create? See, I have a lot of compassion for this question because growing up, I grew up with a lot of absent frequencies. And we know that we need the frequency to match the frequency of what we want to become it, which means if we want to become rich, we have to become the frequency of abundance or wealth. If we want to be in a loving relationship, we have to become the frequency of love in order to attract it. We understand that now in quantum physics. But when you grow up and you don't have the frequency of abundance, or you don't have the frequency of unconditional love, you've never interacted with the frequency of support. You don't have the deserving frequency. You don't have the self-love. You don't have any of those things. Then the way we find them, because it's just a treasure map, this entire virtual reality process, is that we observe. And the greatest expansion point for a soul is when they cannot find or become the frequency that they choose to be. It is your job as an intuitive imagination of consciousness to observe that or those who are. I have learned all of my gifts of love and abundance through observing other people experiencing it, which means that in order for me to understand what it would feel like to really fall in love, I actually read that in a book. And I went on this 4-book journey of this unconditional relationship that taught me the frequency of unconditional love in a relationship, because I had never witnessed it or experienced it. See, how anything becomes a belief system is first we observe, and then we decide, and then we practice. And it is at that practice stage that that frequency literally downloads into the hard drive and becomes an app, and it's now running. So if I'm growing up and I'm not seeing a loving, healthy relationship built in trust and support, I grow up with fear, that's going to be my dominant frequency when I build my adult reality. So my job as I become more aware is to go, okay, I am this light worker, I think, but where's the money? Where's the relationships? Oh, I must not have that frequency. I must have the opposite frequency of that because I keep manifesting the opposite of what I want. No problem. How do I attain that frequency? All I have to do is I have to go observe it, and I have to observe it. And then I want to see 5 people experience this, because then what happens, just like a baby watches their parents walk, they believe they can walk because they're watching you do it. They know it's possible. And as soon as they know it's possible, they know that if they practice in physical reality, they can too walk. And this is how we learn how to do everything. And this is how the conscious becomes subconscious, which means that when you reach a point of becoming this abundant frequency or this psychic frequency that you want, or whatever it is that you want to master in your life, as soon as you've practiced it enough, observed it enough, you believe it's possible, and then you become it, now it becomes subconscious. And when it becomes subconscious, you no longer have to think. You just are, which means I don't have to turn my channel on and off to channel information. I just know that I am a channel. So anytime, any place, anywhere, I have access to all different kinds of information that are not necessarily generated in my memory banks. They're generated in the quantum field of possibilities. And I know that I've trained myself long enough about that I just have to think about who I am and it happens, which means it's subconscious, or sometimes I don't even have to think about it. Most of the time I don't think about it. The less I think, the more I know. That is the absolute truth. Okay? So it is all about you finding the probabilities outside of you, because triggers and inspirations work for two reasons. Everything is reflective and projected in the universe. So when you see someone outside of you that has something or can do something or that has created something and it inspires you, that is your higher self saying, that is you. That is you. You wouldn't be attracted to it if it wasn't you. Now, when you get triggered by something that feels utterly opposite than you, disgusting, repulsive, unhealthy, unwanted, that is also you, but it is a part of the suffering in your timeline that you're in avoidance of. So triggers work through positive expression and negative expression to remind us of where we're vibrating underneath the surface, so we can bring all of our magic and potential to the surface so we can actualize it and we can actually become it. Okay? So I hope that made sense. And we're working on these exact things when we start working in the psychic games and quantum life Tika. We're going to be working on playing psychic games so you guys can recover and remember where your toolbox is, because you all have all of the spiritual gifts, not just the gift of empathy. You have them all, but you have not opened that box because you've been focused on other things like bills and relationships and suppression and suffering and things like that. So the games haven't begun for you yet. You're still working in the survival game of how do I live, breathe, and be. So we want to get past all of that. We want to begin to celebrate our divinity, because it's really about celebrating our divinity and instead of constantly searching for it. And that's really my message for the rest of my life, is that. And that's why every tour will be a celebration. Every class will be a celebration. Every time I get on here, it will be a celebration. Because the more we celebrate the perfection and the divinity that we actually are, the less we have to search for it. Why would we ever have to search for something that we are? All we have to do is remember and play. Remember, play, celebrate, rejoice, connect, expand, right? And then that helps us remember. And if we've forgotten how to celebrate, just watch someone else do it. And then know that if I'm seeing that in my reflective universe, then it must be something that I have within me that I am capable of expressing to. Okay? Awesome. So Jennifer asks, how can one energetically protect themselves from 5G technology? Wearing orgonite, tungite, or black tourmaline? Earthing shoes, other earthing techniques? Thank you. Yes, 100% all good. But let's go a little bit deeper into quantum biology here and understand that we're hitting 5G or 5D. Light workers are moving into 5D. And here we are, interesting enough, birthing 5G technologies. Now, what is 5G? Most of you guys are probably way more tech savvy than I am, but I'm looking at the 5G technology through the vibrational construct and purpose of it. The purpose of it is to expand our connection. Okay, that's the purpose of 5G, expand and speed up the connection. Isn't that what 5D is? Expand and accelerate connection. This is so awesome to me as a scientist, because I just so geek out about duality. It's like what is actually increased knowledge, support, and awakening on this planet is the very exact thing that's causing its demise. So let's look at the internet. The internet's purpose was is basically to materialize the Akashic records into form. So anywhere, any second, you could Google search, find some information, and boom, you know about the Arcturians, you know about Nikola Tesla, you know about everything and anything. And then all of a sudden, you also stumble across things that scare the living life out of you. So in the art of duality, there has to be and understand a resonant point. The resonant point is your absolute truth, your gut, that when you read something on the internet, regardless of how esoteric or metaphysical it sounds, it may not resonate and it may scare you. And anything that scares you is a byproduct of something that is not true for your soul. If you feel something that is, or you read something that is scary and it triggers you, it is not in alignment with your highest expression of joy and your soul's desire. Because when you read something that is designed to scare you, it is not in alignment with God. It is not in alignment with source energy. Because there is nothing outside of God. Only duality exists, which means light, absence of light. So when we're drawn towards entities or information that tell us that the world is not a safe space, or that the world's ending, or lots of your friends and family are going to die when the shift happens, that's absolutely untrue information, because that person or information doesn't understand parallel realities. It doesn't understand that in virtual reality we get to create and make it all up, but we have to be ultra present. So 5G, to the unaware, irresponsible light worker, is going to be energetic warfare. And the reason why is because the 5G operating system is based in the light worker heart technology, which means amplify, expand, connect. And that is the same thing that a light worker's bodies are designed to do. So it is going to be like two opposing forces coming together. And even though it's going to maximize our potential with technology, it is going to suppress and contract an energy field if it isn't vibrating at the point of its truth, which means I've been doing a lot of teaching about this in Tika on how we can really kind of, again, not protect, but create healthy boundaries of our own energetic field. And what creates a healthy energy field, okay? What actually creates a healthy energy field? First and foremost, self-care. The more care you take of your body, the more healthier your energy field will be, okay? Eating life-based foods, having healthy, loving frequencies around you, like people, places, and things that you actually feel good about yourself in, that's gonna amplify your energy field, okay? Good, clean water, right? Higher frequency technology around you. So like, if you don't have the Tesla technology that we're working with now, you can listen to binaural waves. You can listen to, soundtracks of the ocean or rivers or lightning. And these are all very powerful frequencies that get you into your body. And as soon as you're in your body, you realize you are creator and nothing can have effect on you. It's just like the first question Heather asked about the water. When water is, if water can't hurt me unless I'm already hurting me, right? So 5G can't hurt me unless I believe that this is going to hurt me. It's a belief system. But we want to create our energy fields as strong as possible, because most people, light workers, have a natural energy field of about 3 feet out. The coherence of the heart field, when it's amplified, can reach about 5 to 15 feet out. But a fully actualized human can reach 25 to 35 feet out their energy field, and it's solid, which means that I'm vibrating at an exact frequency that anyone who comes into my path, I will not alter my frequency. They will alter their frequency to me if they're not in their own frequency. It's almost like if I was playing a song on low, right? And then someone else next to me played a song really loud. Which song would I hear more? My song or their song? Your job as a light worker is to turn your song all the way up, so that if someone else turns their light up, it's just going to sound annoying, and they're either going to turn their light down to hear your song, or they're going to go away. See how powerful frequency is? And we're really going to be talking about in this next tour in Vegas, the power of the soul song and how to create it and how to generate it and how to amplify it, because we all have this soul song, which is this very unique frequency of source energy inside of us. And it is unlike any other song in the universe. And when amplified, it has the power to remind other people of their songs, okay? And then we're all in an orchestra together, playing our songs together. And it's like this beautiful a cappella rendition of 5 different songs all playing together in unity. And it sounds beautiful. But right now, It's whoever has the loudest song in the room holds the frequency. And 5G is going to be a really loud song. So you've got to be really present. You've got to have a lot of self-care going on and self-love, which means you're monitoring and having healthy boundaries, which means you cannot anymore in this space and time have the capability to surround yourself with negative people and thrive. You're going to have to make some choices about that. You're not going to be able to eat crappy food unless you are a walking 6-dimensional frequency being where you can alter frequency of food and water, which I will tell you is super awesome when you're able to do that, which means you can eat anything you want and it's not going to change your frequency until you access the diamond heart frequency. You're going to have to make sure that the stuff that you're eating is in a vibrational match to where you're heading as a being, because it's a belief system. Okay, everything is a belief system. So food, water, space, time, right? Self-care, music. Music is the one thing that translates time and space. And music that uplifts you changes your brain waves. Okay? The thing that I would love for you guys to master the most in the coming year is to master your own activation of your own unique brain frequencies. Your brain is the receiver and the perceiver. So your brain, whatever frequency it is in, is going to produce a hormone, and that hormone is a communication cycle between the brain and the body to let your body know who you are. And your body does not know who you are unless the hormones are shifting through you, and then through the feeling space, you identify with who it is you're becoming. And if I'm constantly in fight or flight, I'm going to have this push-pull between my ego and my higher self. My higher self's going to go, be free. And over here is going to be like, I'm not free, because my brain is telling me, and now I'm going to feel like I'm bipolar. So it's very important that you start to do some brain re-entrainment processes where your auto default program of your brain is fight or flight or high beta. And what we want to do is we want to make a new subconscious auto default program of at least alpha in our brain, where we go into a natural space of learning or natural place of imagination before we go into doubt, worry, depression, and pain, because that's basically what we've been attuned to for the first 7 years. We watched mom and dad run around in high beta frequencies of our brain waves, and we've attuned our thinking brain into that model, and now we've grown up in that brain. So we've got to shift that brain. Now, in TICA, we study a lot of epigenetics. In TICA, which is Transcendence International Consciousness Academy, which is my online university, we study a ton of quantum biology. We're constantly in epigenetics because you are the creator of your reality, but you have a body. And you can think, but then you have to act. And the action part is what manifests your state of being. And your state of being is what manifests your reality. So when it comes to 5G, that's what we're doing on these tours, is we are basically saying we're in a revolution and we are embracing the technology, but we're actually going to use it at the game that it was designed to contract, which means we're going to take 5G and we're going to amplify our knowledge expansion and creativity, but we're going to become the frequency of that. So we're going to work with this energy instead of opposing it. So there's a lot of awesome things that are happening right now with our expanded heart fields and our awakening that we can utilize and be in sync with this frequency, because it was developed based on the light worker frequency itself. It is the same coordinates. So we just can't resist it like an opposing magnet. We have to come together and use it. But I have to be solid in my frequency and vibration in order to not be suffocated and basically become a total recluse and hermit because of this frequency. If you are an empath and an introvert where you were too sensitive before and you have a lot of lack and doubt and judgment and fear, 5G is going to throw you over the edge. So I welcome that you start studying quantum biology and study your brain waves, because that is going to be your ammunition. And if you join us on the tour, we've got custom oils that Lisa's making that you can literally take the frequency with you wherever you go, rub it on you, have it around you. We've got the Tesla technology that you can have with you at any time. I use it on the airplanes. I use it around any field that you don't want to necessarily be blown out of, where it's hard to manage your own vibrations. You can have it in your home. You can have, there's so much technology out there and so much ancient wisdom that has resurfaced. And we happen to have all of it on the tour. So we hope that you join us in Vegas, because that will really help you lock in your soul song so that anywhere you go, nothing will ever penetrate your energy field. Okay? Awesome question. All right. Karen Palmer asks, where in my life am I being a slave? So that is a pretty personal yet non-personal question. Where in your life do you not have absolute abundance? Where do you have absolutely lack of choice? Where do you not feel safe to be you? Where are you not feeling safe to go? Where are you not feeling free to create? And what do you not have to create with? So those are the more important questions than where am I a slave, is where am I feeling trapped? Do I feel trapped with money? Do I feel trapped with time? Am I trapped in any of these relationships? Am I trapped anywhere in this body? Is this body a total fast running Ferrari, or is it a beat up pickup truck? Do I have absolute freedom? And those are the questions that you want to ask yourself when you can find out where the slavery programs are running in your biofield, because those frequencies are not just collective, they are not just remembered, they're ancestral. And we are here to clear up all of our ancestral BS as well, which is part of the Quantum Revolution tours. It's because when you clean your energy field, because of the unity factor, we are also taking personal responsibility for our lineage and our bloodline, and all of the fears, lack, separation, suffering, and also gifts. If we understand epigenetics, we can pull from their gifts and we can heal the past. So there's so much empowered places that we can go, but it's for you to kind of figure out where you're playing that out so that you can find where it is that you need to change that belief system and start moving into freedom and possibilities versus lack and separation. Okay? All right, we have time for one more question. I know I didn't get to any of your questions that you probably posted online, but I think that we might want to do this once a month if you guys are interested in this, because it's definitely my highest joy to be here with you. Let me know feedback if you would like more of these question and answers. Obviously, we do this every single week in the subscription group, so if you're on the fence about that, go ahead and join us. This last question is Jennifer. How can one do a house clearing from a distance? Awesome question. So I have been doing house clearings for about 5 years now, and I do them very differently than traditional psychics do. Like, I don't walk in with sage and stuff like that. I walk in with myself because I use my heart chakra, and then I do this rhythmic activity with all of my chakras to become basically the frequency of love, joy, peace, creation. And then I spend time lovingly in the house to change the frequencies in the house to match that frequency. And then what I do is I do an energetic process with the host of the house that lives there about whether the things, belief systems, past traumas, her disassociations or his disassociations, his limitations, his lack. Because what happens is, when we know this as practitioners and healers, that we go in and we do this amazing healing, and all of a sudden the light comes back on and there's this gratitude and excitement, and then 2 weeks later they come back to you with another problem or the same problem, and you're going, what's happening? And the reason why is because the home is usually a vibrational match to the host. So you're better off, Jennifer, having a conversation with the host. Now, I get a lot of calls from realtors that are saying this house will not sell. Can you help do a house clearing from a distance? And yes, you can absolutely do that. So it's not about finding the host in that situation. It is about finding the story of that house. So what I will usually do is I'll ask the realtor and say, okay, so tell me the story of this house. Oh, well, they went through a really bad divorce, or they lost their house, or they lost their job and they lost their home. So think about that vibration of what is in that home, and think about why that home wouldn't sell or why that home won't clear. So if you understand the frequency chart that I'm sure Frank will post for you guys if he ever watches this, is anything below, once you drop it below anger in the frequency scale, you become this victim energy. It becomes very lack. It becomes very dense. It becomes very fear-based. And a home can move into that state of being very, very easily. And in that home, it becomes a vibrational match to break down, despair, destroy, and create. So when a home reaches a frequency below anger, things will start going really wrong with the house. This also goes with cars, but it is usually a reflection of the manifestation of the beingness of the home. So, you know, I grew up and we lived in so many haunted houses I couldn't even tell you. And it was interesting to see the stories of why we moved into the houses, because I always took on the assumption of the frequency of the house. So I was a very fearful child. And so we would move in these houses where I would always connect with these fearful spirits. And we were a vibrational match. And then I understood that later, why I attracted living in all those homes. But you cannot clear a home unless you clear the vibration of the story and the essence and, you know, all of these things. There was this one house that I cleared, and it was this couple that had just recently gotten divorced. And they had built it from scratch. So it was all brand new. It was the most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, open space, open floor plan, vaulted ceilings. And they had this one room all the way in the back. And you know, the kids wouldn't go in there, and just nobody, like, they just didn't know what to do with the room. Yet it was like the most beautiful room in the house, and nobody could figure out what they wanted to do with it. It was empty, had nothing in there, no furniture, no life. And so the gentleman asked me, you know, I want you to clear this room so my kids will play in here. And it was interesting because the couple had just gone through a divorce, and the husband decided to remain in the house, and he had the kids on the weekends, and he really wanted the kids to be able to use that space, especially in the wintertime. And so I walked into the room, and I'm looking at how aesthetically beautiful the room is, and my attention goes to this beam at the top of the ceiling. It's this big, awesome, chunky beam that's probably, you know, just 100 years old. And I asked him, I said, tell me about this beam. And you could kind of feel his heart sink a little bit. And he says, oh, I salvaged it, and it was a big main focal point of the home. It was kind of like what the home was created to be about. And you know, we got it from this old estate, and blah blah blah. And I looked into the past story, and I didn't feel a negative vibration. And I asked him, I said, what was going on with you when you were installing this beam? And he started to get really emotional, and he says, when I was actually installing this beam, I found out my marriage was over. I found out that my wife was filing for a divorce, and you could just feel like he was this really tough guy, so he was really trying not to go into grief. And I said, so then you just kind of finished the house? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you understand why you don't want to be in here? And he kind of looked at me like, that's too logical. And I said, so it's time for us to create a new story in here. And so, you know, your kids are so empathic and connected to you that they are feeding off of that vibration of you. And they also know that this was the exact location of when, you know, they had to live in separate houses. And it was a very interesting kind of quantum house clearing, because what we decided to do with the house, instead of clear the charge, was we decided to recreate the space. And we kind of sat around as like this little family with the kids and the husband, and we decided, like, what is the intention of this new space as this new family. So they all went and they painted pictures with, like, they got oil paints and painted pictures, and each kid has a painting in the room, and they created their new chapter together, and they decorated it all together, and they basically changed the story. And I didn't have to do anything because it wasn't really my work. My job right in that moment was just to be the channel for the home. And then, you know, they made it all new, like this new beginning instead of this wretched end. And they began to basically live in that space after that. And that's a really emotional story, because it was a very emotional journey that we went through. But we don't realize that the things in our home carry our stories for us. And just like our bodies carry our stories, and our homes carry our stories, and our cars carry our stories. You know, I can walk into a house and look at a picture hanging on the wall and tell whether or not they were in a fight during that picture, not because of the beautiful way they look, but from the frequency. And that's usually the thing that brings in negative energy into the home, is resentment, suffering, pain, secrets, lots of secrets in houses. And you know, absence of light and truth. Homes are supposed to be our sanctuary. So how can you clear your home from a distance? Is you're going to have to do some investigation if you're not totally psychic. And you don't need to be totally psychic to do house clearings. You need to be able to look at the timeline, look past what you see, and go into the stories of the home and do a little bit of research. And then once you do the research, you ask yourself, what does this home need that it doesn't have? It needs, a home is about love. It's like the womb, right? A house is the structure, right? But the home is like the creation inside. And that's usually what brings the stories. Just like when you buy antiques at an antique store, most of them are haunted because they've got stories attached. Not necessarily bad haunting, but they have an echo of a vibrational consciousness attached to them, which is what we understand about clearing houses in quantum mechanics versus, you know, your traditional New Age ways. So hopefully that helped. Not that sage won't help, not that sage and crystals and all those beautiful things won't help, because they will, but if the host remains a vibrational match to the pain, it will just regenerate the story into the house. So hopefully that answered you guys' questions. I know that there's lots more questions, but we are already over time. So I can't shut up, I'm sorry. If you guys connected with this information and you're hearing me for the first time, cancel, log in. What? I'm lit. I think I'm live. I'm just going to keep going live. It says I'm live. If connected with this information, please join us on our tour. We have about 10 tickets left for our Quantum Revolution tour in Vegas, and then after that, the early bird special ends, and the next group of tickets will be available. Otherwise, join me in the classrooms for more expanded quantum biology and quantum teachings. Thank you guys so much for having me.